And when a particular issue is contentious and they write about it, of course it increases awareness of investors who might not otherwise know that their company is involved in a situation, a takeover or a connected transaction, or a proposal to give big bonuses to connected persons or whatever. The media then can alert people to the fact that there may be a voting issue coming up, but it's still an issue for the retail investors to then get in touch with their banks or brokers and tell them that they want to vote and make sure that those votes get sent in, and then cross their fingers and hope that the transaction in question goes to a poll vote.
Well, I think most particular you can monitor company behaviour, corporate behaviour. I mean, that's the bread and butter of what we do every day, is that we have companies who make public disclosures, many of those, and to give them the appropriate coverage, we try and explain them in a way that they go outside of a narrow circle of regulators and professional people who would naturally be interested to a broader audience. I mean, that's what we can do, and hence creating a climate where regulators feel an obligation to be accountable, and where hopefully change can take place. I think the interesting thing with being a journalist is that at a very small part, I mean, you're an observer of events, some of them routine events, some of them great events that sort of change the place in which you live, and that at a very, so you're a part of that, and on certain occasions you can make a difference to the way those events turn out. You uncover great wrongdoing, that leads to crooks being caught, and that subsequently leads to changes in the way that our system is managed. That, I think, is the kind of thing that motivates many journalists to go into the game. It's not something you wake up and think of every day, but if you step back and you think about how have we covered a particular issue, a particular theme, I know that many times we will have discussions with government officials and things, and what is now just received wisdom as the right way to do things was something that they thought was most unsuitable to Hong Kong a few years ago. So I think that provides you a certain professional pride.
One role that is often overlooked when people talk about a company's senior management team is the role of company secretary. We want to know if this is an important role or not in a company, and is there a great variance in the influence the company secretary has in different companies. If you listen carefully to the following responses, the clear message is, it depends.
Well, I think the company secretary plays a very important role in corporate governance. I would observe that company secretaries differ remarkably in the range of responsibilities which they have, and in the breadth of knowledge which they have about the business. But all of them should, and I think in my experience do, have a great knowledge about the laws and regulations applicable to a company. And the primary responsibility and most important responsibility from the point of view of the directors of the company secretary is to ensure that the company is in compliance with all the rules and regulations applicable to the business of the company.
I would say, as a company secretary, of course, the person will be playing a very neutral role, and you are facilitating all the board of directors to know, say for new directors coming into the company, then you give them some information about the background of the company, the rules and regulations that each individual company got, some their in-house practices, and help them to adjust to get to, so that when we have meetings, then they know about what is the normal, or say what has been discussed in the last 2 or 3 board meetings, so that it's easier for, say, especially some independent non-executive directors to come in, that they can catch and know the background and the main discussions that are at that point of time which the board of directors is talking about. I think the role of the company secretary has always need to change according to the requirement. It's a practice, so it's keep on changing, ever changing. And of course, more focus now is, I think we are playing a more important role, as I just now say, with new members coming into the board. And always, especially for the INED, my experience is I think they do like to contact the company secretary because this is a neutral position to get information that they want.
Finally, we were interested to learn if the role played by professional organizations was markedly different from that of regulatory bodies, and specifically, how the various professional bodies could help companies in their quest for better governance. Here's what Jimmy Allen had to say.
ICS, ACJ and other organisations are important because firstly we help to keep the political momentum for corporate governance moving forward. I think we, through research, through events, organisations like ours help to, and yours help to create awareness and understanding of corporate governance. I think we also, we can also be organisations that can help companies implement and think through how to implement corporate governance best practices and how to develop strategies in corporate governance and how to sort of prioritise. So I think that these are typically not functions that the regulator is very good at playing. I mean, the regulator is good at writing rules and enforcing those rules, or maybe not so good at enforcing the rules. The investors clearly have a role to, they're investing in companies, analysing them, and selling the shares if they don't like them. The investor's job is they can educate companies on specific issues of concern to them, but they don't run educational classes or workshops on how companies should implement best practices. So, and companies often need to go to professional bodies and associations to get input and advice, or just to share ideas. It's not necessarily that the associations know more about corporate governance than the companies, but perhaps they have a different perspective, or they can, it's through dialogue with companies that they can assist those companies to produce a better result. So
that is all we have planned for in this first program. We have looked at the general definition of corporate governance and the role of the key players involved. One important message that has emerged from the discussion is that corporate governance is not a subject of interest only to directors, chief executives, or academics. Growing numbers of people in Hong Kong are investors, particularly since the launch of the Mandatory Provident Fund in the year 2000, and have a right to know that their money is in safe hands. More fundamentally, corporate governance sustains our entire economic system, which would unravel if corporate malpractice went unchecked. In the next episode, we will be looking at the corporate governance standards in Hong Kong. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.